All right, let's talk about Dante Moore. Why? He's probably Oregon's starting quarterback this fall. I can't guarantee that because nothing's been named, but that's every indication that we know of. So, a Locked On Ducks insider sent me this question, which you can become as well. You can get a free 14-day trial with the link below. You get priority mailbag access and a bunch of other perks as well. And I got this one over there, hence why it's first up in the mailbag. Hey, Spencer, I know the quarterback talk is probably getting repetitive. Never, absolutely not. But since you're talking about traits of guys on the show, I figured I'd ask, do you think Dante has the highest ceiling since Herbert? Ooh. I personally think that Herbert had quite possibly the highest ceiling of any Oregon quarterback, strictly traits that I can remember. And while Dante might not be the athlete that Herbert is, I think the arm talent could be there, especially with the out of structure stuff. Also, I have seen too many mock 2025 playoff brackets include Michigan, and I truly do not understand the hype with them. Just a thought, go Ducks. So the hype with Michigan is they bring in the number one quarterback in the 2025 class, Bryce Underwood, which he may or may not even start right away. They brought in a transfer from Fresno State who could start before him, but that creates a lot of momentum, interest, intrigue surrounding Michigan. So that's part of it, but also Sherrone Moore is a really good coach. They've made some solid moves in the portal. They have a good core returners. They're also losing a lot. I think they, like Oregon, have a better chance to push for a national title in 2026, but I do think they'll have a great opportunity to do that when the time comes. But as to your question about Dante Moore, speaking of the state of Michigan, where he's from originally, then went to UCLA, went to Oregon, sat for a year, now in line to be the starter going into his third season of college football. Traits-wise, I would put Dante Moore above Dillon Gabriel, but behind Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a really, really good quarterback prospect if you're just and only talking about traits. He has got a really good arm, not a Herbert level arm. Herbert probably has the strongest arm of any Oregon quarterback we've ever seen. I'm trying to think of one that would be strong. I don't think it exists. The effortlessness with which Justin Herbert flicks the ball down the field, it looks like the football version of Fred Couples' golf swing. It's so easy and natural and fluid and smooth. It's like watching poetry just come through your television. So I'd say Herbert, from an arm standpoint, is number one in that regard. But Bo Nix is really high on that list for me because, remember, this was a five-star quarterback, Bo Nix, coming out of high school that didn't have the career he's necessarily looking for at Auburn, but he didn't get drafted in the first round just because he won games at Oregon. Dillon Gabriel just won a bunch of games at Oregon, and he threw a ball really fast at the combine. He's not going to get drafted in the first round. He might not get drafted at all. I hope he does, obviously, but I'm not expecting him to. He came back to college, Gabriel did, because he got an undrafted free agent grade the prior year. Certainly he upped his stock with what he did this past season at Oregon, but when you're as big as he is, you can just only do so much. But Bo Nix is every inch of 6'1", 6'2", really good arm, and he can really run. We saw that a lot with the Broncos this year. He can move. He can absolutely motor more than Herbert can. Herbert is bigger with a bigger arm, but Bo Nix has got more mobility to his game. Dante Moore, I think, is kind of in between those guys. I'd say he runs better than you'd think. Maybe not quite as well as Justin Herbert, but nobody's arm is going to be on Herbert's level. I'd say overall, not just looking at arm strength, but factoring in all the traits, I'd put Dante Moore ahead of Dillon Gabriel, but behind Bo Nix, behind Justin Herbert, probably behind Mariota as well. Mariota had a good arm. I think Dante's is probably a little bit stronger. It's one of the reasons that he was a more highly rated recruit coming out of high school than Mariota was. But Mariota is also the fastest guy to ever play quarterback for the Ducks. He and Luke Moga, of course, who might never start a game for Oregon, but that's the way the quarterback room goes. You throw a bunch of guys in there, figure out who can work, how they can contribute, develop, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'd say Dante Moore has higher level traits overall, like talking about an NFL draft prospect profile, than Jeremiah Masoli, than Darren Thomas, than Vernon Adams, all good quarterbacks, by the way, than Dakota Prukop, certainly than Anthony Brown. Tyler Shuck, that's an interesting one. Shuck is huge, by the way. Tyler Shuck is 6'5", And I don't know if you saw what he did at Louisville this past year. He was good. And when he was healthy at Texas Tech, they won football games. Tyler Shuck turned into a more than respectable college quarterback who maybe or maybe not gets picked up by an NFL roster. I think he's got a decent chance to do it. He had a really good season. I think his numbers were, let me pull them up real quick, because this past year at Louisville with Jeff Brom was a really good quarterback coach. Yeah, he's 6'5", 225, 63%, almost 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Passer rating of 148. That's really good. that's a really good season. So I think Shuck's a better runner, but Dante's got more arm talent because his release and ability to use different arm angles is kind of Matt Stafford-ish. Not a one-to-one comparison there. It's just kind of what I see. Anytime I see a guy be able to drop down, which Dante can do and is super useful, yeah, Mahomes can do it, but Matt Stafford did it first. That was the first guy that was throwing submarine balls and looking like a shortstop at times out there at the quarterback position. But, I mean, going back even further, I'd put Dante above, probably below Dennis Dixon, honestly, because Dixon ran so well and also had an NFL career, mostly as a backup, but had a really good arm and could move and was really tall. He was a little skinny, but, I mean, overall, he was really good. So, yeah, I'd probably say Dante's top 5 to 7 traits guy all time, mostly on the arm. Like, he can move. This has been a subject on the show pretty often recently, actually, and I think it's an interesting conversation because he's not known as a runner, but as I've said, he's not immobile. You know, when I think immobile quarterbacks, Eli Manning, Jared Goff, an immobile quarterback, who's a real statue out there? Those are kind of the most high-profile examples. None of the guys that have been playing in the playoffs recently are immobile, except for Goff, because I mean Hurts runs around a bunch, and Allen and Mahomes, like they can all move. But I think there is some Mahomes. Please don't take this the wrong way. There is some Mahomes to Dante Moore. I wouldn't describe Patrick Mahomes as a running quarterback. Like Jalen Hurts is a running quarterback. He will run. They will have design runs for him. There are no design runs for Patrick Mahomes. But is he stationary in the pocket? No. That's kind of what I expect from Dante Moore. I don't see a guy who is required to just sit there because he's not athletic enough to get outside the pocket. I also don't see someone who you're going to call, a play that Stein has used the last couple of years in the red zone is, they motion the tight end across and have him be a lead block with momentum on the read option. And he kind of does a show block on the first guy and then gets out to pancake the corner. They ran it against Oregon State in 2023 and Michigan State in 2024 for touchdowns. I don't know that play is available. But the sprint outs that we've seen, or any kind of role play like that, or just Dante escaping a sack and moving to his right, yeah, he can do that. Run to throw. That's what I think he brings to the table. And his arm talent is really, really special. So, yeah, going back to your original question, I'd say guys above him, Herbert, Bo Nix, Mariota, Dennis Dixon. That's probably it. Joey Harrington be close. I don't know what their one-to-one arm talent evaluation would be coming out of high school. But Dante's quick release and arm angles and the strength of his arm, it's elite, man. It is absolutely elite. So definitely excited to see what he can do in this offense, but for him, it's not about having the traits. It's about learning to play the quarterback position, which, as we saw with Ty Thompson, is rather important and takes a lot more than just being gifted enough.